Okay, now I'd like to introduce Manny Herrera, and he's the Garden and Farm Programs Coordinator at Tarrant Area Food Bank, where he leads garden education, coordinates the Community Garden Network, facilities garden operations, and implements the Farmers Market Nutrition Program. In addition to his bachelor's degree, Manny's completed Texas Certified Nursery Professional Certification with TNLA. I happened to look that up. It was Texas Nursery and Landscape Association. So I'm going to turn it over to Manny. Thank you so much.
How's everyone doing?
Good. All right.
Good. All right. So yeah, thank you for introducing me. My name is Manny Herrera. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. Born and raised there. I moved to Oklahoma for a few years for school, and I originally went there for meteorology, to study meteorology there. I didn't know later in my life that I would be so obsessed with gardening and plants, but now I am, and I'm really happy that I found this career here. I've been with the Tarrant Area Food Bank for just over 4 years. I originally joined up to be their gardener. We had 2 gardens over in the Fort Worth area. Now we're down to 1, and we're having another one built, which will be really fun. As I started working there more, I got moved to garden educator, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I still do that now. I do a lot of education with different organizations, schools, different things like that. And now I'm the coordinator for the program, which has been really fun. It's been really fun doing the different phases of our program, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. So yeah. Just a little bit about Tarrant Area Food Bank. We serve 13 North Texas counties, which is why we're Tarrant Area and not Tarrant County Food Bank. Hood County is one of those, and we're separated into 3 different areas. Our main area, north, and then over in west. And we've been around since 1982, 125 employees, a lot of volunteers. We can't do a lot of our work we can do with our volunteers, especially with our garden program. So we're really happy about them, that they're able to help us serve the community like they've been doing. Our vision and mission here, communities where everyone has access to food that they need, and empowering our community to alleviate hunger and improve health. And so this is our Garden Farms programs, what we're doing with the community. We have our Community Garden Network, which is really fun. Right now we have over 50 garden partners that we work with, and they're comprised of churches, businesses, school gardens, community gardens around in our service area in those 13 counties. With them, we do a lot of education, just like this. Different trainings that we offer, connections and resources, especially connecting other school gardens together, the teachers together. They're able to bounce off different ideas. And then we're also able to share resources that we get donated to us. Sometimes an organization or a store will donate a big pallet of dirt, and we can't do anything with our garden. So we'll open that up to our community, our garden network. Come pick up some soil bags that we just got. Sometimes we'll get a bunch of seeds, which is also really nice, different plants, and then we share that out with our network. Our Garden for Health education, we do that to improve well-being with our neighbors, reducing stress, increase physical activity, increase socialization, and also resiliency, which is really fun. Yesterday, I just did a Garden for Health education, and we were doing container gardening, which is really fun. Our neighbors really enjoy it. They like working with the plants, working with each other, and it's just a really good time getting all of them together. Our farmers market programs, currently right now we're doing our farmers market nutrition program, which runs from May till the end of September. And what that is supports and income for local farmers around North Texas. and also provides fresh fruits and vegetables to families on with WIC benefits. And then we also have a farmers market on site on Thursdays at the Tarrant Area Food Bank, and that runs until the end of July for our on-site one. And then our garden opportunities, when we're not doing the farmers market nutrition program, we offer garden opportunities for volunteering with our garden over in Fort Worth. And right now, a lot of our other garden partners in our network also have some public gardening that they're able to do with the for volunteering. So our produce goes to either for our west facility, the produce there goes to the on-site market for our neighbors, and then the Fort Worth one, we're able to give our produce directly to our community kitchen, which they use with their medically tailored meals, and then any extra we give to our partner agencies as well. And then a lot of hands-on experience too with either our gardens or our network gardens, which is really fun to do. All right, so we're talking about container gardening. My favorite way of gardening, that's how I got obsessed with this hobby, with this lifestyle. Whenever I moved back from Oklahoma, I wasn't into gardening yet. And the organization I was working with, they had a plant sale, spring plant sale and a fall plant sale. And we were encouraged, the employers were encouraged to go shop. It went back into the program, and I bought 4 pepper plants. Didn't really know what I was doing. I put them all in one really small container, really bad quality soil, but I got obsessed with it since then. And that weekend, I bought more containers, and then by that next week, my whole backyard was full of raised beds and containers, and then I've fallen in love with this ever since, and it's been great. And then that's when I started finding the Tarrant Area Food Bank, which is really nice. So what is container gardening? It's a method that involves growing plants in some sort of mobile structure or a vessel. Most container gardens consist of a variety of planters or pots that are intended for growing plants. However, non-traditional planting containers are a great solution for growing produce, a great solution for recycling, upcycling, and just getting rid of junk so it doesn't go to the landfills or anything like that. Some of the containers that we like using with our garden partners and also for education too, those include milk jugs, tires, grow bags, which is my favorite way of, my favorite container are the fabric grow bags, water troughs, we've used wagons, some gutters before, barrels. I like cutting the 55 big gallon barrels into 3, then I have three of those that I can use. Storage tubs, and even baby pools. With my personal gardens, I like using baby pools for the like pumpkins, watermelons, different things like that. A lot of the vining stuff, that's my favorite way of doing. We'll talk about a little bit more about kind of what I use with the baby pools, but that's one of my favorite ways too. And then, but again, like I said, my favorite is the grow bags. And at the end of the slideshow, I'm gonna do just a little demonstration with this tomato plant that I brought, and I'm using a fabric grow bag, which is gonna be really fun. Okay. So the benefits of container gardening, the number one that I think is just the mobility of the container. It gives the gardener the option to pick the best spot possible for that plant. And especially in the summer months when that Texas heat is really beating down on our plants, with a container, it's really easy to move that out of that sun into a cooler spot. And then as the season changes, as the shadows start moving around your yard or your place, you can easily kind of move that container around. They allow, the containers allow for gardening in a place where soil is limited, or if there isn't any soil at all, like a balcony or a patio situation where it's just concrete, you can easily start a garden on there, start growing a really nice garden. The balcony, when you're elevated up, you can have a really nice garden growing over there. There's different varieties that are more suited for that, so you can easily start growing some food that way. Or even if you do have a yard and you have access to it, sometimes you're not able to dig into it. Like my past apartment, I had a yard, but I couldn't dig into it because it was still part of the properties. So I just got a bunch of these fabric containers, and I had a really nice garden in my little backyard spot, which is really nice. And sometimes you might not want to dig into your grass, and so you can use your containers for that. Maintenance is usually less than a traditional garden. You'll still have to work on it a little bit, but it's usually contained in with this vessel here. For the grow bags, you do have to kind of wash them a little bit. They do get a little bit yucky at the end of the season, and just depending on the material, you might have to either wash them, replace them, different things like that. But usually, the container garden is a lot less maintenance than a traditional beds or in-ground garden or rows, something like that. You can control the soil type and the quality. Depending on where you live in North Texas, that ground isn't going to be that good for your plants. Where I'm working on my parents' garden in their backyard, and it's full of rocks, not a lot of organic matter in it. So with the grow bags, or with the containers in general, you can control your soil type. If you want more sandy soil, you can do that. If you want more organic matter into it, you can put that in there. And then the quality too, whether you make it yourself or if you're buying commercial bags of soil, you can do that too, whatever you want to do. And then pests and diseases, you're still going to get some with container gardening, but generally less than something in ground or something that's stationary like a raised bed. They're usually a little bit easier to get around. You can move the pots around or your containers, and that usually deters some of the pests. Some of them don't like the containers. A little bit extra effort to jump in or crawl up into those. But you still might get some, but it'll generally be less. And same thing with diseases. Usually a little bit more manageable than something in ground or a lot of close-up plants together. All right. And even though it is my favorite way of gardening, there is some disadvantages to it too. Especially if you're using lightweight or porous containers. They're probably going to dry out a little bit quicker than something in ground or in a raised bed, especially during warmer weather like it is right now. It's going to dry out quicker, especially my favorite fabric containers. They're very porous. They dry out really quickly because of all that airflow, but I still like using them. And on the other hand, heavy ceramic pots or heavy plastic pots may hold too much water and harming the plant, harming the roots. And that's where drainage holes come into a big part for that. They're just like I kind of mentioned right before, the containers are going to be watered more frequently than other ways of gardening, especially in the summertime. I've noticed that I usually have to water at least once a day for sure for my containers, just because you're only working with so much dirt, so much soil. There isn't a lot there depending on the size of your container, so it's going to dry out a little bit quicker. And then the same thing with the soil nutrients. That's going to leach out with the extra watering, so you're going to have to replace it a little bit more often than you would a traditional bed or something in ground. Whenever we're talking to, whenever I'm doing this with other organizations, I always like to mention kind of like cutting costs with your nutrients. I always ask if there's a lot of coffee drinkers. You can reuse your old coffee grounds for that. We used to work with a coffee shop in Fort Worth that would bring their used coffee grounds to us. That when we had a compost pile, they would bring that to us, and then we would use that. Sometimes we would use it into our beds directly. We also talk a lot about eggshells. If you eat a lot of eggs, we always say to boil those for a little bit, crush those up as small as you can, as fine as you can, and then you can sprinkle that into your containers. just to cut around with the cost of replenishing the nutrients, because a lot of that nutrients can be pretty expensive depending on what you're buying and what you're trying to get. And then the weight, depending on the material of the container, the soil that you put in, how big the plant gets, it's going to weigh a lot more than when you're setting it out. A lot of people get around that from already having their container that has wheels on it, so either like a wagon or a wheelbarrow. If it still works, you can use that to move that around, and you'll still have that mobility. When I was mentioning before with the baby pools, whenever I could still kind of drag it around the yard, but by the time it got to, it was getting beat by the sun all summer. Whenever I would go to drag it, I just get a handful of the plastic because it's all been brittle. So then that takes the mobility out of it, which is one of the disadvantages of that. Okay, the types of containers, big or small, you can go with kind of whatever your space is able to hold, what kind of plants you're trying to put in. Usually for the smaller types, a lot of the herbs and smaller plants, root vegetables work really well. For instance, herbs and onions are really nice. We like to use the smaller sizes for that. Radishes and beets are also really good. Kind of like your cut and go and come back. Lettuce and spinach, different things like that work really well for a smaller pot. We use a lot of our kind of smaller vessels at the food bank for strawberries. We use that a lot. And then we like to connect the runners on top of each other, and then that looks really cool. Whenever we have volunteers come, or sometimes we'll have a school just bring all their small kids, and they really get a kick out of seeing the strawberries growing like that. And then usually we can kind of clip some of those and give those straight to either the volunteers themselves, the kids themselves, or just give them to the teachers, and they'll start growing those into their classrooms as well, and kind of have that going throughout the year. Going up one size to the medium, your medium containers. I like using kind of a bigger container for like your bigger leaf vegetables, like your cabbage and your cauliflowers, your mustard greens. They get real heavy, and sure, you can use a smaller container for those. We've done it before, but it'll get top heavy. It starts falling over. And the last thing you want to see when you come into work is all your plants falling over onto the side. So we like to use just kind of the bigger ones, just so there's a stable base, so none of that happens. Going up one more, your really large containers, that's when you're going to get to support your bigger vegetables and anything that kind of grows a little bit deeper. So we like to use those for our baking potatoes, our sweet potatoes, any kind of melons. We like to do that. And sometimes our really big containers, we put in a bunch of our smaller stuff. So we'll use a large container and just have a bunch of different kind of herbs. Sometimes we'll have a school come to our garden, and or a school volunteer group, and we'll have them plant a bunch of either root vegetables together or a bunch of herbs together in kind of a bigger area, just to show that you can fit a lot of things together. And that's always really fun to do. Kind of our larger tomatoes, sometimes depending on who's planting them, sometimes we'll let them just kind of grow and be wild, and that's when our larger pots come into play again for that weight distribution. But some of the ones that we prune and take care of and just kind of make a little look nicer, we'll use kind of a more medium size container for that. So location, we like to use, so for location, you really want to make sure which location suits the requirements for your chosen crop. Usually whenever we're teaching our Garden for Health that I mentioned earlier, it's a 4-week series. And that first week is we teach how to plan for your garden. And that first thing is, what are you wanting to plant? What are you planting for? Are you planting for your family? Are you planting, like for us, are we planting for our neighbors, our food pantries? And we really want to see what the best things that we're planting, so we know the location, we know if they're if they're gonna be cool season or warm season, and that sunlight demand is one of the most important ones whenever we're trying to look for the location. Luckily for us, with both food banks, our Parker County one and our Fort Worth one, it's kind of out in the middle. There's nothing really blocking anything. We get a lot of sunlight, so we don't have to worry about that. We do have to worry about some of the plants getting scorched sometimes, but for the most part, we're getting a lot of sun. So we try to plant those kind of vegetables that require a lot of sun when we're trying to decide at the beginning of the year what we're trying to plant. For that, going back to that Garden for Health series, our second and third weeks, we do seed starting and container gardening. And I always like to teach, whenever you're picking your seeds or your transplants, there's going to be some kind of info, especially on the back of that seed package. There's all the info on there you need for your location, timeline, and then sometimes depending on where you're getting the transplant, there'll also be kind of a little tag on there too that shows you the type of location, the type of sunlight demands. Everything should be on there, and so we like to really teach that, to look for that. And if there's nothing's on there on that transplant, sometimes an associate working there will kind of know what they're talking about depending on the store. For location, again, this container gardening is a great option for growing on patios, on balconies, rooftops. There's countless areas that you can throw your containers on, and then they'll start growing. Kind of going back to the types of containers, a lot of the common materials that we like to use at the food bank. We get a lot of terracotta pots that are donated to us, so we like to use that. Anytime we get a really big donation, like I said, again, we invite our community members to come and take what they need, or give us, or we tell that distributor, whoever's donating, to give directly to one of our bigger partner agencies, and they're able to give to the other gardens that are close by to them. We do a lot of that if anything's kind of like in our southern counties. We try to find kind of our bigger garden partner to distribute around there, just because not everyone from our really north counties or southern counties can come all the way to Fort Worth, to our central location a lot of times. So we try to make sure that everyone's getting the benefits of our distributions. We like to use a lot of plastic too. Durable plastic. You can use the lightweight plastic too, but just like with my baby pools, they're not going to stand up to the heat very long. Unglazed ceramics are really good. Untreated wood, the grow bags, and then concrete. This is from my personal garden that I did with some succulents. That was really fun one year, until they all died over the winter. And, it was fun when it was nice outside, but then when it got to the winter time, it didn't look too good anymore. Okay. And then, all right. So any questions on any of what I've been talking about so far? Before I do the demonstration, just some quick tips for successful container gardening. Ensure your chosen container has proper drainage. We always like to stress the safety of putting those drainage holes into your pots. We don't want any drills going through anyone's hands or anything like that whenever we're saying put in that drainage hole. a lot of containers, kind of unconventional containers, already have some kind of drainage, or you can kind of use the available parts of the container. For instance, a lot of our bottles or anything like that, we can tip it over, undo the cap, and now there's already a built-in drainage hole there. But we really stress to have that proper drainage, let that water flow, and also we also like to add in adding coffee filters or newspaper at the bottom, just because if that person doesn't have access to like a drip pan or a catch pan, something like that, that water is going to come out and pull some of that dirt sometimes, or some of that soil. Sometimes our terracotta pot donations are, a lot of them come broken, which is fine. And so we like to use kind of like those broken pots, broken pieces, kind of as that shield to keep some of that dirt from coming out of those drainage holes sometimes. Adding a layer of landscape fabric, coffee fillers, just like what I was mentioning. Using straw or leaf mulch on top of the soil to help retain that moisture, and also to kind of keep it a little bit more comfortable in the winter time. Straw mulch that we've used on these, I think those were Brussels sprouts. I think that's what we did one year. And also a lot of using straw or leaf mulch, you can always mix that into the soil, kind of add a little bit of nutrients in that way. We'll tell our neighbors whenever they're watching the prices of their nutrients, they can definitely do that to kind of cut some costs, add a little bit of organic matter into there. We've also given tips on, or suggestions that you can, instead of filling your whole container with soil, you can do maybe a third or a fourth of old leaves or old mulch, put that at the bottom, and then that will kind of add some filler to there while you're putting your dirt on top. We've done that before. I've done that with some of my personal gardens, personal pots, just because soil is expensive, and you never always buy enough what you need on that day that you're doing your project. And so instead of having to drive back out to the store, you can kind of stretch out that bag a little bit more often. A thick layer of compost on top too also helps out. We'll add, right now our Fort Worth location it's all in ground right now. The west one has in ground and raised beds, but our Fort Worth location has in ground, and we usually try to keep it going throughout the year. But usually when we have our break at the end of the year, we'll add some compost on top, just to protect it from cold, from wind, and then whenever we have our, and also we give our volunteers a break. We don't really want them to come and volunteer with us when it's almost close to freezing or raining. So we give them a little bit of break until it starts being nicer. And then once they come back, they're able to mix in that compost layer on top back into our beds, and then we're able to start growing pretty soon. Another tip that we like to add is don't overplant your container, like I did with those 4 pepper plants when I first bought them. Don't crowd your containers, results in nutrition deprived, stunted plants. And we also stress, even though it's the same plant, it's the same kind of peppers, the same kind of tomato, they're gonna compete for each other. They're gonna stunt each other, and you might still have some kind of growth, but it's gonna be really little, instead of giving them the space and uncrowding them like they need to. And then the last one that we like to use, we always like to, especially with our Gardening for Health, we always like to stress safety. So placing large containers on dollies to make them easier to move. Don't wreck your back, don't break your knees. Be safe when doing this really fun job, and also really fun hobby. And okay, any questions before I do the planting demonstrations? All right.
Okay. So one thing I noticed when you had the, like 5-gallon buckets, and I presume you had the holes
Oh, yeah.
in the bottom, but then you also had them propped up on, so they could drain a little better.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
good.
What I found, when I did that is, some really cool looking, like mushrooms would grow underneath. And one almost looked like a flatbread, that was really cool. So yeah, I saw that on just kind of like an Instagram post. They used, I didn't have access to pallets, but they used pallets, they stacked those on top. But I had these paver stones for another project that I half did and didn't go back to it. So I used those just to kind of prop it up, yeah.
What, you said, where is the location of the gardens?
Oh, so our locations, our west garden is over on, I can get the address for those. We have our Parker, our Weatherford Parker County one. And that one's over in, it's around 112 Winter Circle, Weatherford, Texas. That's our west facility over there. And then our main facility in, we call it TAFB Main. That's over in Fort Worth, and that's right next to downtown Fort Worth on Cullen Street, around the Montgomery Plaza area. So it's right over there. We do kind of have like a satellite north area where we're able to service our north counties, but there isn't a physical location yet for that one. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a significant difference between straw versus mulch? Like as far as like feeding the plant?
Maybe like leaf mulch maybe might have some more. I like using leaf mulch more than I do the straw.
Okay.
Just because the straw mulch I have to buy pretty much. And the leaf mulch, my parents have a lot of pecan trees, and so I rake all that up for them, and then I take that with me. Yeah, so I like using that. Yeah.
It's always good.
Oh yeah, for sure. When we had our second garden, so we had one on the Camp Bowie area, and now we've given it back to the church that was on there, originally a Christian church. Now it's the Ridgely Giving Garden right now. And they have a drop-off area for landscapers to drop off leaves, so they're able to use those leaves to for their compost and their mulching needs. All right, demonstration time, I think.
Probably dumb here, but, your cinder blocks that you had garden.
Oh, yeah.
Ordinance that you said you had, what do you have underneath there? What's elevating them?
So, I probably did it wrong and did it a lot harder than what I needed to, but it's other cinder blocks that are stacked up. And then in between, which was a really pain to move, I put in those, like those egg stones or river stones to keep them from moving. But then when I had to move it, I had to take down all that, which is really heavy and took a really long time. But elevating that, I just have other cinder blocks on there. That was really fun to make. Not fun to take down and move whenever I move. But it was really cool. It was fun. Yeah. Alrighty. So, I'm going to, here, just so I don't make a mess. Hi. Even though I'm already making a mess with what's on here. Alright. So I have this little containers. Whenever we do the container gardening, Garden for Health session with our series, we usually either provide these or for our participants, for our neighbors, or our, there's like a long plastic one, I didn't bring them, but those already have drainage holes. These fabric ones, again, they're porous, so you don't really have to put drainage holes in. Another, I guess I could have put it for the disadvantages, but the disadvantages of these, the water goes everywhere. It comes out the sides, not only from the bottom. So if you're using this for, I wouldn't use this for like a house plant or something somewhere inside, because that's just gonna get everywhere. Okay. So, get my box of dirt too.
Looks like it's
Our
soil.
soil. So this has a lot of, so this is from our garden. There's some old roots in there too. The previous gardener, manager and coordinator, they used pecan shell mulch for their mulch just because it's along the parking lot and the wind whips around the building really hard, and so any kind of mulch that they use would just blow away. So they started using pecan mulch. It stays on there a little bit more, and it's able to mix in pretty well into the soil whenever we're turning it for the season.
How do you stay organic when you're using stuff from your yard to put in there, and you're spraying your grass, or you're putting stuff on your grass to keep the bugs off of it or whatever, and then you use the clippings to put in for your mulch? How do you stay organic, like
Yeah.
with the pecan shells and stuff?
So for our operations, any kind of spray that we use, the most we would use like neem oil is kind of the most like aggressive way that we will use our that we'll spray our plants. A lot of times we'll just use water just to kind of get the bugs off. One time we tried to use ladybugs and they just flew away. It did not work. It did not work at all what I thought how it was going to work. I had this cool idea. Let's just get ladybugs, and they flew away. But we really try hard to not use any pesticides, not use any spray.
So you need to know where your stuff is coming from
Yes.
that you put into your soil.
Yes. Bordering our garden, it's a long garden, 200 foot by about 8 to 6 feet, 6 to 8 feet. On either side are grass patches that our landscape deals with, and we've worked with them that they don't spray anything that would harm or drift onto our garden. And luckily they've done a really good job of doing that.
So like the first cutting off the grass is usually probably not the best cutting because it'll have some of this residue on it, but maybe like the second, third cutting of grasses would probably be safe to use in a mulch situation.
I think so. A lot of our partner gardens that do have kind of a compost or mulch operation, they usually don't use the grass just because of that, just in case, excuse me, something does get sprayed on there. They don't want to put that into their planting.
Yeah.
So a lot of them they don't use a lot of the grass.
Do y'all track how many pounds of produce that you get from your gardens and supply to the community?
Yes, we do. We have last year's numbers, and last year with our garden network altogether, we had over 68,000 pounds harvested, which translated into 57,000 meals to our local network pantries and neighbors. So as part of our to be in our garden network, the only kind of rule that we have is that you report your harvest to us, just so we can track that, so we can have this number here, and some of our partners only they're only able to donate maybe a couple of pounds a month, which is totally fine. We don't have like a set limit or a set to where you have to be at this number. Some do a couple of pounds every month. Some do a couple thousand pounds a month, depending on their operation right now. So yeah, so we keep track of that. We also offer our garden partners like a volunteer system where they're able to recruit volunteers through them, and then if they use our system, we track those volunteer numbers. And that's what we had here. Last year, we had over 5,000 hours of volunteer support spread across our network. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
I take.
Alrighty, so
I'm a little slow.
we always like to wet our soil a little bit, just so whenever we're watering or whenever we're putting our dirt in, and then we water after. Usually if you water your dry soil, it's just gonna go everywhere. It's not really gonna soak in. The water will attract the other water, and so everything just kind of stays put. Doesn't really run too much. So we'll mix it in a little bit. And I always like, whenever we do education at schools or with, even with the adult classes, they'll bring their families, they'll bring their children in. I always like them to do this because they get their hands in there, they get their hands all dirty, they like playing with the dirt. But I won't ask anyone to do that here. Y'all don't have to, okay? And so, just start filling it in. What I always like, whenever I do this in the summertime and there's tomatoes available, I always like to use a tomato because I always like teaching people that usually with a transplant, you'll kind of keep it like level with the root ball. But I always like to teach people that they can, with a tomato plant, they can pretty much bury the whole tomato plant in. The little hairs will turn into roots, provide for more water absorption, nutrient absorption, and also kind of a better anchor to be in there. So we use, that's what happened yesterday with the Garden for Health series. I brought these. We had about 10 people, so they were able to plant their tomatoes and take them home to their to wherever they're staying at, and they all got a kick out of the information about the hairs and all that. So that was really fun. Okay, and then we always like to let people kind of do the way that they want. Some people will fill their container all the way up to the top, put a hole, put their tomato in there, or their transplant. Some will plant it, will put kind of halfway with their soil, and then put their soil around. For me, I'm going to fill it up a little bit more and then make the hole, the planting hole. And one of my favorite, if anyone's ever asked you kind of like, what's your weird like smell that you like, or something that's just an unusual smell, for me it's always diesel gas, because it reminds me of waiting. It reminds me of waiting to go on a field trip when I was a kid, waiting for the get on the bus. And so another one is the soil. Is that soil smell?
So I think there's 2 of us in the world who like diesel smell.
Oh, cool. Hey, perfect. Hi, people. Yeah, it always reminds me of waiting on the. I wasn't a bus kid to go to school, but I always liked. Anytime I smelled that smell, I knew that, hey, we're gonna go on a field trip. It's gonna be it's gonna be a fun day. So anytime I smell that, it always just reminds me of going on a field trip.
Mandy, do you not break up the roots a little bit so that they can,
Yeah.
cause they're usually pretty tight in those containers.
Yeah, a lot of our beds, one of the reasons we're having, so I didn't mention this, we're having another garden built for our main location, and I'm really excited about that because a lot of our in-ground beds are full of those roots, those matted roots, and so yeah, so we try to break it up as much as possible. We try to get our volunteers to use kind of like that manual tiller tool, just to kind of break up that a lot. Even though there's sometimes they do kind of break up and not dissolve, but dissipate, I guess. A lot of our beds are full of those roots, so we really try to break them up as much as possible.
What I was talking about was that plant you had there, that little container had a bunch of roots in it, and you just set it down
the root ball?
and you didn't break the root ball at all.
Yeah,
we try to do, I've always done it at the bottom, just kind of break it up a little bit. I think, ooh, I got that smell. It smells really good. It smells really good. Is there a better technique that anyone likes to use to break these up?
Break 'em.
Act like
really
actual like break
actually
it?
break it, yeah.
Break it, massage it.
Yeah, give it a little
cut
more,
it,
yeah.
depending on the-
Instead of pushing in and pull out.
Pull away.
So if you were planting that tomato plant, you wouldn't plant it in that size of container, you'd use like a larger one, correct?
I would probably use, I like using at least like a 5 gallon.
Yeah,
And I started, depending on the brand, I started using a 7 gallon one just to give me a little bit extra room. I started noticing that the 5 gallon ones, and even I would use a lot of like Lowe's or Home Depot buckets, and those are 5 gallons.
Yeah.
I would notice that with the peppers and tomato plants, I would start seeing a lot of those roots overtaking the 5 gallon ones. But with the 7 gallon, I started seeing a little bit less just because there was more of that room. But yeah, but just for demonstration purposes, and also we use these just so they're able to take them home too. We'll give them to them like this, and we'll encourage them to either repot, transfer to a more permanent location if they're able to. And then if I had some kind of that mulch, I would put it on top, and I would check that off my list today for transplanting a plant that I had. So yeah, so that's how I would do that. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to me talk about plants and yap about how much I love fabric grow bags. And so yeah.
So why do you love the fabric one so much?
I think just because I don't have to, that's a really good question, because I feel like there's more disadvantages that I've talked about the actual grow bag than I've talked about benefits. But some of the bigger ones, they'll have the straps on there, so I like being able to use that. I like that the water kind of goes everywhere. It comes out the sides, so it gets a lot of the other areas of the soil that's in there. You don't have to put any drainage holes in it. They last a really long time. Sometimes I do have to kind of wash the fabric after the season. There'll be kind of like gunky moss stuff that kind of grows, so I'll just kind of wash that off a little bit. Yeah, just kind of.
do you just buy yours on Amazon?
I'll use Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many seasons do you get out of one?
I've gotten, I think I'm still using the first ones I bought. So almost, I started using these like in 2018, 2019. There's some I'm still using. Depending on the brand, those straps will come right off whenever you lift them off. So like these are kind of cheaper ones. They're just kind of, the flap's just kind of stapled. There are other ones that are stitched all the way. And it's usually from just kind of a random company on Amazon. Each time I try to order one, that first brand isn't available anymore. But they're all kind of the same. You can get different colors. That's also really cool too.
So how often do you have to water that? How does that compare to like a terracotta pot?
So when I water mine, especially in the summertime, I have to water it every day.
But just once a day?
Usually once a day. If it's really hot, it'll be twice a day. I usually hook mine up to at my parents' house. I'll hook theirs up to drip irrigation, and I usually have it going a little bit in the morning and then again right after, in between noon and evening, just to give it a little bit of water, just because they will look really sad depending on the plant in the summertime. So yeah.
I love your idea about putting all the 5 gallon buckets together and elevating and raised garden in that respect. I was expecting something that you'd buy a kit and raise, you know,
Oh,
in
sure.
container gardening. But do you have enough volunteers that you can water that, or do you have it on a drip system?
So,
Or
I'll-
how do you keep it watered?
so ours, thankfully, our gardens, are on drip systems. The one that we gave back to Ridgely Christian Church, half of it was, half of it wasn't, and I would spend about 2 hours in the mornings, watering everything. And then sometimes it would take 3, depending on how much was actually grown, especially in the summertime, and the late spring, when stuff was actually taking off. But yeah, hand watering takes a lot. And so I definitely like using the drip irrigation, the automatic irrigation, as much as I can, for sure. All right. All right, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.